All right, so welcome everyone. I am super excited to announce Sunny Bhatia. He's basically the director of a Bollywood film called ARJUN. So I'm super excited to introduce him, and he's a wonderful friend of mine who's a graduate from the University of Miami as well. So, Sunny, how you doing?
I'm doing great, brother. How you feeling?
Doing great, doing great. So let's just dive right in, Sunny. So with your film Arjun, how did you attract Bollywood actors onto the production?
Well, I think the biggest thing that worked in my favor was that we had a good story. I wrote the story when I was like maybe 2 or 3 years away from coming into University of Miami. Um, and I was just inspired by this article that I read about an Indian soldier. And I was like, man, we could totally turn this into a film. And then once I got here, my first 2.5 years, we learned the movie business, learned the art form. And I was lucky enough to be friends with a few screenwriters who are very, very good at their jobs. And together we wrote the script, which I think attracted named actors. So they didn't really read the script when I had approached them initially. They just went off of my narration of the story, which I think was the key. You know, and they're very good people. They like doing good work there. So if there's something that catches their ear, then they'll definitely give you time.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, when you went up to the lead actor, what was that process of, just getting him on board and so forth?
Bro, that's so we actually had somebody on the ground there who has been working in the industry there for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
And when I wrote the story before I came to University of Miami, I had this actor in mind, and I'm thinking to myself, man, this guy has all the physical attributes, and he's such a great actor, right? He's got so much potential underneath what he portrays on screen, because he's only allowed to do whatever his directors and the storytellers that work with him, allow him to do. So if you're going to be like a villain in one movie, then pretty much, and if that movie works, then every other director wants to put you in that, they'll pigeonhole you there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking to myself, man, I would love to work with this guy and have him lead a movie that I would work on, I would make. Never thought in a million years that they'll find him and they'll get me in touch with him. But I had him as a reference. I said, if I can get somebody like him, then we can possibly, move further on in talks. Well, when I got to Mumbai, they said, what if we got you a meeting with the guy?
Yeah, yeah.
And I said, and this was on the day that the meeting was supposed to occur. So I had no time to prep. I had no training. I didn't, psych myself before we went in. It was just, today we got a meeting with the guy. Today's the day. It's at this time. We got to go. And it's going to be at a studio where he's working.
Yep, yep.
So I'm just thinking to myself, we sat down for lunch at this restaurant and I can't eat. It's just not a good day, right? So the time came when we went to the studio. He came out to kind of receive us. He didn't have his people come out. He came out himself. And Nikitan Dheer is his name. And he's like a pretty big name there as far as television and film. And he came out and, had chairs set up in the back lot there and gave me 25 minutes to just pitch him the story. And at the end of the 25-minute pitch, he shook my hand and he said, I'm doing it.
Wow. That's awesome. Wow.
I was nervous out of my mind, man.
I can imagine,
It was the most nerve-wracking 25 minutes that I have ever had in my life. And it felt like 25 hours the way I'm narrating this. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm drawing it out. I gotta cut to the chase. And at the end of it, he was just like, I'm going to do it.
Wow. That's incredible.
We've actually had such a great relationship since then.
That's great.
There were so many, this happened in 2018. There were so many months where it was we had to push the shoot because we didn't have the finances. We had to there was so much that needed to be done which it was difficult to do from Miami, and we had to keep pushing the shoot. And he was just so flexible with it. He's like, bro, we'll push it. We'll push it. Don't worry. We'll push it. We'll push it. And he gave me the days that I needed. He gave me time. He studied for the role. Like he was just the best.
That's awesome. Wow. And you know, and going off of that point, you know, it's been a couple of years now of, you know, from concept to production. So what was the funding process like in that sense? Like what was the pitch to investors to get them on board, you know, to invest in this?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I had when I started the process was the name that was attached to it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. My work previously kind of gave people some hope that I can pull this off. And looking at the previous films that I directed here, they were able to see that I have the ability to kind of up the ante a little bit as far as my storytelling.
Yep.
So I didn't really have to like pitch as much. I just had to show them what I can do, and I had to be convincing in my trust in the story that I knew where this was going and what I was going to do with it. My family helped out a lot. My dad and my uncle used every bit of connection that they had to get us resources.
Okay. Yeah.
So in certain situations where we didn't have the money, a lot of crew members and department heads came in and took cuts to be on the movie. A lot of favors were like done. Like a lot of the work that's done here are favors. Mm-hmm. Because they like the story and they like the concept and they like the fact that, you know, they like the team who was involved in the process. And that's with every department, every stage. They see us working and they're willing to work with us, even though we didn't have the resources that we needed in a perfect situation.
Yep, that makes sense.
So concept helps out a lot. Concept and your conviction of the concept helps out a lot. People want to do good work, man.
Of course, yeah. I mean, to budding filmmakers, you know, in regards to getting their film funded, I mean, just what would be a summary of what you know, some tips and so forth of, let's just say if it's a newcomer, a filmmaker, how would they go about that process of getting their film funded? Is there websites they should potentially go to, or is it mainly just selling on the concept, or what would you say?
Unfortunately, there was no website. There was no official way of getting any type of funding for this. This was me knowing somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody, my family knowing someone who knew someone who knew someone. Mm-hmm. And that's literally how I was able to get into meetings.
Yep, that makes sense.
And if it wasn't about finances, then it was about their talents being involved in the project.
Yep.
So from my experience, I think it was a lot harder for me because this is technically a short film, even though it's like about 42 minutes. Mm-hmm. People normally don't see the financial incentive when it comes to short films.
Yep.
But from my experience, if I had to like sort of give advice to people trying to obtain any type of financing for their projects, the only thing that I would say is you show passion in your work, in what you have. Because your passion, the way you sell your project to potential crew members, potential investors, potential money people, that will take you a lot longer way than you trying to be very calculative and mathematical with them. Hey, this type of film worked in this situation, and this is how much money you'll make. Show passion, because like I said before, people want to do good work. And if they see that passion, especially if you're a writer, director of the project, if they want to work with you, they'll work with you by seeing your passion in the project.
Yes, no, absolutely. And you know, going back to your point about, you know, it is a short film. So what are some of the advantages of doing a short film over just trying to just raise money and go straight into the feature film?
that is where I think we that was a positive for us.
Yep.
Because our genre, my short film, the genre that we're working with is the futuristic war film.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's sort of this emotional story about this Indian soldier and this Pakistani girl who's the daughter of a civilian that our main character once killed. And
Mm-hmm.
it's sort of like their relationship as friends, and you know what they go through. So there's a lot of futuristic elements that we had to put into the film in order to make the story believable.
Yep.
If it had been a feature film, those, like I said, once you tag feature onto a project, the money motive at the end of it sort of comes into play. So then the scale has to be upped, and you know, more talent needs to be brought in as far as behind the camera, and you know, a movie that, you know, which is at the end of the day just a concept for us. People in India don't make these type of movies. It's a very dark, futuristic type of drama, war drama, and short filmmakers in America don't make this type of movie on this level, on the student film, short film level.
Yes. Yep.
So this is a concept for everybody who's involved.
Yes.
Which works in our favor in the sense that we get to keep the scale where we want to, and people just work on it because it's a good project.
Yes. Yep.
So if you have a concept that you haven't really seen people do in the short film realm, or you know, in our case in India, nobody makes these type of movies. It's easier to sort of get people involved if it's a shorter film.
Yep.
And if that film works, best case scenario, if a studio likes it or a producer likes it, and you want to continue with that story or you want to dig deeper, you can get an opportunity to make a feature out of it. Yep. That has been done before in the past. There's precedence for that.
Yes, no, that makes 100% sense. And going back to your point about, you know, like, I know Bollywood is literally the biggest film industry in the world right now. And, you know, in the past, whenever I watch them, you know, it's mostly about love stories and dancing. And now you're coming in with, you know, and the movies are changing as the years progress, but you're coming in with a completely different take on that. So where do you think it fits into the new mold of the Bollywood films, or are you completely changing it and offering, you know, something completely different? That's something that, you know, people have never really seen before.
Bro, they still have that song and dance element in their cinema.
Yep. Yep.
And, you know, the trend in that industry currently is very small town stories. You dig into the heartland of the country and you find these very emotional, simple stories that still involve the song and dance. And those are the type of films that technically work there. This is completely coming out of left field because this has a very, for the duration of the film, this has a very substantial scale.
Yep.
And there's visual effects in it, and there's in our situation a lot of action. And what I wanted to do with this film, Ishan, at the end of the day was, and I said this one thing to every single department head when we first went into the project. If somebody is playing this movie in their house and they played it on mute, I wanted them to feel like they were watching an American film.
Yep.
Only when they turn the sound on and they hear the language that they're speaking is when they realize that it's not an American film. I wanted, and what my friends who helped me sort of write the film and sort of, you know, helped me push me to getting to the end of this, they said that this movie was, you know, the American action film genre with the heart of an Indian film.
Yes. Yep. That makes sense.
So that's sort of the approach that we wanted for this. And from what I can tell, like there are few films few far in between that come out from India that have the grand scale to it and the visual effects. But in our, like, I feel like this is still coming out of left field for them.
Yep. Oh, that
Especially what we're trying to say in this movie, because this the story and the point of the story at the end of the day is something that they've made in the past, but we sort of bring it into the contemporary style of filmmaking.
Of course, yeah. And going off of that point, with the lead character of the film, Arjun, so I just wanted to go, what is the inspiration behind that character? Because I mean, usually when I think of the name Arjun, like I know in India, he's sort of like the spiritual figure kind of comes to mind. So I'm just curious as to, with the name Arjun, like what was specifically the inspiration and how is that unfolding into the story?
That has a very like convoluted type meaning to it for me.
Yeah.
The actual meaning of the word Arjun is like clear.
Yeah.
Or pure, or like white, like clear. And I always envisioned this story of having no good guys. Mm-hmm. So we set this story in 20, 30 years in the future or whatever, and it's a war that's been happening for decades between India and Pakistan. Now, if anybody knows anything about these two countries, they are mortal enemies to a certain extent. The governments are constantly at odds with one another, and it's a very tough situation. So we set this story in the midst of a decades-long war between the two countries, and there are no good guys on either side. The only thing that we have in the story that is on the side of good is our main character and how the teachings of his father stay with him, even though he is fighting in this brutal war.
Yep.
And pretty much going back to the idea of he ultimately is one of the few who has that purity in him.
Yes.
And we don't really see that there's another one like him in the story until our second lead is introduced, who's the Pakistani girl, played by this great actress, Ritika Shrotri. Mm-hmm. She's done some smaller films, like regional cinema and regional television, regional theater, and she's so great. We didn't even audition her for the film. We just interviewed her. She loved the script, and she's a heavy hitter, man. And yeah, both of them did an amazing job in the movie.
That's fantastic. Wow. Yeah, and then I mean, going off of that, even amidst your other projects and so forth, I know that your last film was called Buffalo Girls. So what was the process of getting that into an Oscar qualifying festival? Because I mean, I know you have like numerous accolades like underneath your film. So in terms of getting Buffalo Girls into an Oscar qualifying festival, what was that process like? And is there like a secret formula to doing that?
If there is a secret formula, bro, I have no idea. So Buffalo Girls was a short film that I worked on concurrently with Arjun, with one of my best friends and screenwriting partner, Aaron Gordon.
Yep.
Buffalo Girls was his brainchild, and he's been dreaming of that story for the longest time. Even when he was helping me write Arjun, he was writing down graphs and notes, and he had these like character biographies for these characters in Buffalo Girls. And like it's a very like intimate story about this family in rural Florida and how they have to sort of deal with just hate and just this idea of being accepted or being ostracized for who you are. And at the end of the day, being a story about these two sisters and how they're at odds initially, but how they slowly come together and form a bond. I love working on that movie, man. And the festival sort of run was sort of handled by ARJUN.
Yep.
And he had all these festivals lined up. A few of them, his approach to the festival run was having the Oscar qualifying festivals being at the top of the ticket as far as where our finances, the majority of our finances are going to go.
Yes. Yep.
And I think, what we're going to do the same thing with ARJUN once ARJUN is complete is the majority of our submission money should go to the Oscar qualifying festivals that we like.
Yes.
And hoping that they could accept us.
So what are
within about a month or 2 months, we got the reply of acceptance into two Oscar qualifying festivals. It was just amazing.
Wow, that's incredible. Wow.
Yeah.
So what are, so our viewers can list it in, like, what are some of the Oscar qualifying festivals that you would recommend to, budding filmmakers?
Well, I think the biggest, the top tier festivals, obviously Cannes and Toronto and Telluride and Sundance. Like, those are the top tier festivals, but there are several mid-tier festivals that cater to specific genres, that cater to specific politics,
Mm-hmm.
specific racial groups that are as important as far as Oscar qualifying or awards qualifying than the big ones.
Of course, yep.
The two Oscar qualifying festivals that Buffalo Girls got into, one was Martha's Vineyard. It's called Martha's Vineyard, which is a pretty, when we saw the names involved, is actually a pretty massive film festival. It was an honor. It was an honor to get in, man. We celebrated like nothing, like nothing you've seen. Oh, and it was all over the phone. It was was great. And the other festival that we got into a few other festivals, but the two big ones. The second one was called the Pan-African Film Festival in Los Angeles.
Okay. That
was an event. That was an event in and of itself. My friend Aaron, he was actually there representing the movie on our behalf. Mm-hmm. And he was like doing play-by-play on the phone as like who was there. And yeah, there are like several like smaller mid-tier festivals that you can get into, which would qualify you for the Oscars.
Yes.
Or any award ceremonies.
Yep. Oh, that's great. And then also, towards the end of this interview now, I mean, it's really about what do you think is the future of, amidst the pandemic and so forth, what do you think is the future of filmmaking, in regards to, streaming services, Netflix, all these different Disney Plus, there's been such a rise in subscriber bases in these different streaming services. I mean, what do you think of the traditional role as a film director? Is that changing over time now, or what are your thoughts on this?
Bro, I hope not. I didn't get into this business. I fell in love with movie making because of what I saw in the movie theater. Mm-hmm. And I always wanted to see my work there one day.
Yeah.
So my hope is that once this subsides, that people will come in droves to see our films.
Yep.
And I feel that there is a clamoring for that, and if we just hold on a little bit more, just a little bit longer, that the theater experience will be coveted again by the masses. because people are dying to go out, man. And, you know, in many parts of this country and in many parts of this world, like, unfortunately, due to some restrictions, which, you know, are rightfully put to keep this at bay, they can't go out. And our work as movie makers could be a way for them to come out once this thing is over. And, you know, streamers are still going to be there, and it's great to have those for smaller films, smaller features, and smaller genre filmmaking, television, miniseries. But the big movie, big screen experience, I think, is going to come back, hopefully with a vengeance, once this thing is over.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
That's my hope, at least.
Yeah, of course. No, I think that's I mean, the majority of the world, hopefully, you know, we get back into the cinemas and see those blockbuster movies and all those. I mean, honestly, HBO Max actually has been doing a lot of these big premieres with the movies. So
I'm looking forward to a few of them.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to a few of them. Yep.
Which one's is Godzilla versus Kong?
Godzilla's definitely one of them. And Justice League.
Yeah,
I'm a huge Zack Snyder fan. I'm a huge Zack Snyder.
I love Zack Snyder. Yeah, yeah.
I just, you know, I see his interviews and I see how earnest he is with his work. It just makes you want to root for him.
Of course, of course.
And, you know, his version of Justice, his cut is proof of how a fan community can come together and sort of give a director another opportunity to make it right.
That is true.
Because,
that is
you know, unfortunately, there was a lot of things that went down with the original theatrical version.
Yeah.
And you never want to see that from a director. You know, that the movie is taken from them at the worst time, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So for him to get that opportunity is just, as a fan of Zack Snyder and a diehard fan of his work, and like, it's just great to see that.
I mean, is there a specific director, or is it Zack Snyder that you pull like the majority of your inspiration from?
It's an amalgamation of several.
Okay.
Like, when I was young, Ridley Scott, his Gladiator is my favorite all-time movie.
Yeah, Gladiator, that's a great movie.
It's one of the best films. It still to this day makes me tear up when I see the ending.
Yeah.
Mel Gibson, Braveheart and Passion of the Christ and Hacksaw Ridge and Apocalypto, like, those movies have a huge impact on me. Francis Ford Coppola with Apocalypse Now, the Godfather series, The Conversation. Christopher Nolan, more contemporary. During the 2000s, his cinema during the 2000s really impacted me.
Yeah.
Batman Begins, Inception, Dark Knight, Prestige. Like, there's just a weight to these directors' works that really makes me emotional when I see it.
Yes.
And I just want to emulate them. Michael Bay, technically, no one can do the action and the grandeur that he does.
Yep.
And when you see other films, you see how much they've taken from him. You know, they've been inspired from him. Just the way the action is cut now, and how certain things play out in action sequences. A lot of that comes from him, and he's one of the pioneers in that. So if I could somehow take a little bit of every one of those directors and somehow put it in my cinema, I would consider myself a lucky guy.
Of course. Yep. Well, and there's also, you know, they already made their names, but we got to introduce to the world Sonny, right? Like, we don't.
Oh, of course.
We got to see your vision.
Of course. Like, you know, I think Tarantino once said in an interview that, you know, when you start out by copying the directors that you look up to.
Of course. Yep.
And then little by little, you sort of put your own stamp on things.
Yeah.
And as you progress in this business, you sort of make those little elements that you take, that you sort of emulate, you make it your own.
Yes, yes,
Then the world knows those elements by your name.
yeah.
And I kind of hope that one day that happens for me.
Of course, man. Of course. Just, I mean, just keep creating that content, and I always love working with you as well. As concept artists on ARJUN, that was always a blast working with you and getting your
Bro,
creative
you and I were the first. This duo is how it got started.
yeah.
Once the script was done, it was you and me sitting in a corner up in one of these buildings here on
Starbucks,
campus of
like,
the University of Miami, going over all the notes and
yeah,
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 bro, I feel like he should come through this way and
yeah.
your storyboards, how you designed. So to the people watching, our main character has a bionic arm.
Yep.
And your design of that arm actually gave the props company inspiration to what they made and what we'll finally see on screen when this thing is done.
Thank
And
you,
your
man.
storyboard is the document that I took to India and had my crew look at when we were conceiving shots.
Thank you,
And
man. No, that's
bro, you
that's
created the map, man. You created the map for what we see in the movie. And
that means a lot. That means a lot.
bro, I'm so grateful, man. I'm so grateful for you, man. And thank you again for working with me. We didn't really know each other, and you said yes immediately and stayed with me, even though there were moments when it was like, man, I don't know if it's gonna get made. I don't know if
Bro, no, and thank you for even considering me in that sense. And it was a pleasure working with you and understanding your creative vision and you always inspired the rest of the team and so forth. So for that, I'm grateful, and I learned so much. And honestly, it's been like a good 4 or 5 years now. Like, I just can't wait to see the movie come out in a few months. So
oh yeah, bro,
right.
it's mind-boggling to know that in a few months it is going to be done.
Yeah, no, I cannot wait. Just counting the days, man.
When we're finished, I'll definitely let you know. I'll definitely let you know about it, and we'll sneak you into one of these screening rooms and be like, yo, you got to check this out.
For sure. No, thank you. No, but thank you so much, Sonny. And I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. And to those listening, we'll definitely leave Sonny's details in the comments below. And we hope you enjoyed today's episode. Sonny, thank you so much. And
thank you so much, brother.
no, thank you. And thank you all, and have a wonderful day, all right?